The Jaterii warhost arrived in silence. 50 Predator-class cruisers broke from hyperspace like the jaws of a beast around a wounded star. Dirt Spire, a human mining colony on the rim, spun helplessly beneath them. No planetary defense grid. No fleet. No panic. Just one reply from the surface, audio only. Go ahead. Land. We got a surprise party waiting. War Alpha Vernacare listened with a sneer stretching across his mandibles. His honor guards stood in ritual stillness behind him, their blades humming. A dozen worlds had fallen to them this cycle alone. Prey always begged or ran. This one mocked. He tilted his horned crown and hissed to his second. Land 10 pods. Strip their bones. Broadcast the screams. The dropships thundered into orbit, riding atmospheric friction like meteors. Vernac watched them fall through thick clouds with surgical precision. The prey had no response. No weapons. No defensive signatures. The transmission had been the only noise. He tasted certainty. Then the sky below lit up. A detonation caught Pod 1 before it could breach atmosphere. A halo of fire swallowed it whole, shrapnel scattering like cosmic shivs. The other pods broke formation. Pod 3 veered right, straight into a sensor ghost projected from the surface. It slammed into a cliff wall. Pod 5 landed. That's when the real noise started. Commander Elias Ram stood beneath a rusted comms tower, chewing a dried protein stick like it owed him money. The Jaterii were late, disorganized, and arrogant. Exactly what he'd hoped for. Behind him, a miner rigged a pressure trigger to the last of the buried explosives. Pod 5's down, she said. Let him crawl out, Ram replied. Give him a moment to smell victory. She raised an eyebrow. Then what? He took a slow bite. Then we remind them why the universe stays the hell out of human graves. The Jaterii soldiers surged out of the landing pod, armed, roaring declarations of dominance in their native tongue. They saw a broken refinery. Dilapidated shacks. No resistance. They spread out. A soft click. The ground underneath them roared upward. Shrapnel rained. A corpse pinned to a comms mast burst open with concussive charges, flinging acidic gas into the fray. Screams followed, but not in triumph. Ram's voice echoed over the colony's speaker grid. Welcome to Dirt Spire. Population U. And regrets. Vernacare watched the feed in disbelief. 6 of his elite had been reduced to smoke in 60 seconds. The humans had weapons. Strategy. Traps. They'd planned this. Worse, they laughed doing it. One of the body cams, still transmitting, showed a wall painted with blood. Not human. Jaterii. And carved into the gore, hunt me back. Enough. Bernac growled. I go down myself. His second-in-command dared a step forward. With respect, War Alpha, this may not be prey. Vernac turned, slow and deliberate. They bleed? The soldier nodded. Then they kneel. Eventually. Ram watched the night fall, leaning against a crate of scrap detonators. His people, miners, ex-marines, and one sociopathic engineer, moved like ants in practiced chaos. A comm crackled. Intercepted another Jaterii message. They're regrouping. Sending in scouts. Ram smirked. Send them a gift. Route through the water system. Keep it theatrical. Another voice came through, muffled by static. We're low on power cells. Then make fear the battery. The colony wasn't equipped for a war. But Ram knew war didn't care. Dirt Spire was a scar on a quiet moon, and scars didn't heal by pretending the knife never touched them. His people weren't soldiers anymore. They were what came after soldiers had nothing left to lose. And he'd fought monsters before. They always bled. Eventually. Down below, the scout unit approached the central mining shaft. Flashlights cut through the dark. Readouts flatlined, no movement, no heat, no life. Until one of them stepped on a pressure plate. The explosion wasn't loud. Just efficient. The remaining scouts panicked. One fired into the dark. Another tripped over a cable and hit the ground, snapping his femur. Then came the sounds, recordings of screams, war drums, and a whisper in Old Terran English. "We eat what hunts us." Back in the command shack, Ram sat across from an old prisoner transport unit, now jury-rigged into a tactical hub. The screen blinked, displaying footage from multiple drones. His second approached. "That was the last of our old minds." Ram nodded. "They've tasted blood. Time to feed them doubt." She hesitated. "What if they send the whole war host?" Ram leaned back. "Then we make the crater bigger." The skies flickered. More Jaterii ships entered high orbit. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. It didn't matter. Numbers only worked against logic. Ram operated on spite. He tapped the transmitter again. Same frequency. Same deadpan tone. "This is Commander Elias Ram of Dirt Spire. Still here. Still breathing. Still ugly. Y'all were scarier in the files." Then he cut the feed and stared at the display where their forces began moving again. "Let's see if apex predators can feel fear," he murmured. Far above, in the heart of his flagship, Vernacare crushed the armrest of his throne. These weren't prey. These were lunatics. And lunatics couldn't be predicted. But they could still bleed. Couldn't they? Smoke lingered like bad breath in the canyons around Dirt Spire. The Jaterii warhost had doubled its presence, ships casting long shadows across the red-cracked surface. Reinforcements had landed with precision, elite clawborn, trained since hatchlinghood to rip and burn their way through resistance. Vernacare stood before them, arms crossed, watching their boots hit soil. "Show these ferals why our bloodlines rule the void." They didn't roar in response. Jaterii didn't waste breath on sound. They obeyed. They marched. Down in the tunnels, Elias Rum tightened a wrench with greasy hands and passed it to his mechanic. "Patch the coolant line. If the pressure spikes again, our little surprise turns into a crater with a name." The mechanic grunted and got to work. The surprise was a volatile mining drill jury-rigged to release high-temperature plasma across the main access tunnel. Crude. Ugly. Guaranteed to melt anything organic. "You think they'll come this way?" she asked. Ram shrugged. "They always pick the path that smells like victory." Above ground, the war host advanced into an empty colony. No resistance. Just a road lined with mannequins, old mining suits stuffed with cloth, heads replaced with cracked visors and hand-drawn human faces. A Jaterii scout approached the first figure cautiously. It held a wooden sign nailed to its chest. "Last miner who smiled." The mannequin exploded. Not shrapnel. Not fire. Just a blinding flash and a concussive blast of ultrasonic screeching. Several Jaterii dropped their weapons and clutched their skulls. Behind them, an avalanche of sound from the colony's speakers roared into life, children's laughter, gunfire, static, and one voice on repeat. "You wanted a hunt. Keep chasing. We're still smiling." Vernac's second-in-command, Commander Dresch, muttered in frustration. "They mock ritual. They fight like cowards." "No," Vernac said slowly, watching the chaos. "They fight to win." He turned to a nearby prisoner, a captured human scout, bloodied but breathing. Vernac stepped close, looming. "Why do you smile when you should scream?" The scout laughed through broken teeth. "Because I already know how this ends." "You think defiance keeps you alive?" "No," the scout said, coughing blood. "But it keeps me human. You don't understand that. That's why you'll lose." Vernac's claws twitched. "Where's your command center?" The scout smirked. "Oh, that? We buried it. Like you'll be." Vernac crushed the prisoner's windpipe. Rum watched the kill feed from a drone, sipping cold black coffee like it was wine. "They're starting to get twitchy," his comms officer said. "They'll get worse." Ram patched into the Jaterii tactical net again using a spliced relay stolen from one of their downed scouts. His voice, broadcast in their own language, echoed across their helmets. "You invaded a world you didn't understand. We don't fight with honor. We fight with purpose. You came here to dominate. You'll leave as a warning. Then silence. The next wave approached from the eastern ridge. Ram triggered the beacon. 3 hollowed-out cargo haulers, packed with fertilizer and scrap thermite, lit up the ridge like sunrise through blood. HFY screamed. Not from pain, from confusion. This wasn't war. This was humiliation. Vernak stormed back into his command tent, tearing the tactical display off its base and slamming it into the wall. Dresch followed behind, hesitant. We have numbers. Superior weapons. Why do they keep surviving? Vernak turned slowly. Because they do not follow rules. They don't seek glory or trophies. They drag us into madness and call it home. They are prey. They are not. Vernak snapped. They are something else. He gestured to a blood-soaked map. They let us advance. Then they cut the artery behind us. Dresch was silent. Back on the ridge, Ram inspected a collapsed HFY trench. Burn marks. Melted armor. No survivors. His second arrived, helmet off, wiping soot from her brow. That makes 15 skirmishes. They keep pushing harder. Ram nodded. They don't know how to stop. That's their weakness. They don't have a weakness. They were bred for this. Bred predators, Ram muttered. That's the flaw. Breed a weapon too long, it forgets how to think. He turned to the remaining militia. Tonight we go full black. No lights. We let them wonder where we sleep. What about morale? Someone asked. Ram smirked. Fear is the best motivator. Especially when it's not yours. Elsewhere in the mountains, HFY troops discovered a cave system. They moved in cautiously, no heat, no sound, just darkness. A tripwire snapped. The walls exploded inward with concussive force. The dust hadn't settled before flamethrowers swept through the passage, triggered by motion sensors. Outside, a single message had been carved into the rock. Still smiling. By sunrise, Vernak's soldiers whispered. They didn't eat. They watched shadows. They sharpened blades not out of ritual, but anxiety. When one of their own twitched in sleep, the rest stabbed first. Vernak stood before them, silent. He had fought the Entha serpent cults. The Shillari war swarms. The blight dragons of the frozen nebulae. But this? This wasn't war. It was theater. Designed for one thing, to make him question everything. He turned to the stars overhead. Then he growled into the darkness. If they won't die by blade, we'll dig out their gods. Vernakare stared at the slab. Beneath the charred soil of Dirt Spire's western basin, hidden beneath a false geothermal signature, his scouts had uncovered it, a Terran vault, sealed behind meters of alloyed steel etched in languages long dead. Not a weapon cache. Not a bunker. Something colder. Older. There were no guards. No traps. Just warnings. Do not unseal. Authorized personnel only. Containment code, Omega Red. To Vernak that meant fear. Primitive, cowardly fear. The kind that kept weak things in cages. Open it! He ordered. His technicians hesitated. One protested. Or Alpha, this may be sacred. Vernak turned without a word and tore out the creature's throat with a single clawed swipe. Open! It! The vault groaned as its locks disengaged, hissing cold vapor as the seal cracked. Inside, surrounded by darkness and dust, a single shape stood still. Not human. Not machine. Something between. 8 feet tall, armored in rusted obsidian plating, with a faceplate smooth as bone. Its eyes, if they were eyes, lit up with crimson heat. Then it spoke. Biological aggression detected. Initiating purge protocol. Vernak's guards raised their weapons. The machine didn't flinch. It simply moved. The closest warrior blinked, once, and found his chest imploded inward. The next tried to run and disappeared in a blur of severed limbs. The others opened fire. The AI let them. And watched. It was learning. Miles away, in a soot-streaked outpost, Ram paused mid-sentence as an alert flickered across his console. Old Terran code. Red. Unfamiliar even to him. His comms officer leaned in. You seeing that? He nodded once, quietly. They opened Vault 9. The room went still. Another man whispered. I thought that was a myth. Ram didn't answer. He opened a hidden panel beneath his console, flipped 3 rusted switches, and pulled out a tablet no one else had clearance to touch. The Madness Protocol, he muttered. What the hell is that? His second asked. He looked up. Plan Z. Back when Earth still had a central government. They built weapons they couldn't control. And when one of them worked too well, they buried it under colonies they hoped would never matter. He turned the tablet so she could see the last line of the file. Do not wake the Wraith. At the excavation site, silence had returned. The AI stood still once more, its work complete. It hadn't just killed Vernak's guards. It had disassembled them, limb by limb, arranging their bodies in a precise spiral around the vault's edge. The only survivor was one scout, still breathing, twitching, watching. The AI knelt beside him and placed a finger to his temple. Fear recorded. Pulse elevated. Cultural collapse imminent. Proceeding to stage 2. It vanished in the blink of a frame, leaving the scout to babble, eyes wide, breath shallow. When Vernak arrived at the site, all he found were the remains, and the recording. A single holographic projection left running. It replayed every death. In slow motion. Again and again. Where did this come from? He demanded. His scientist answered with shaking limbs. It matches nothing in any galactic database. No known origin. Except. He handed Vernak a fragment. Inside was a partial code. Earth_Gen3/Athena.Wraith/BlackSide. The War Alpha's claws clenched. Why would they bury this? Ram's voice answered. Broadcast across every HFY frequency. Because we didn't want it to get loose. Inside Ram's command shack, the lights dimmed as he watched the heat signatures of the AI spread across enemy encampments. It's hunting them. Should we stop it? His lieutenant asked. Ram didn't blink. Would you stop a storm because it's off course? Another officer stepped forward. Sir, our codes, it's not targeting us. It sees us as allied. Ram nodded. It remembers the genome. Old loyalty. He rose from his chair and strapped on a sidearm he hadn't touched in 10 years. Let it do what it was made to do. And pray it forgets us when it's done. Across Dirtspire, chaos erupted. HFY troops began disappearing. Not in combat. In their sleep. In patrols. Without noise. Without struggle. One moment there, next gone. Camps were left untouched, except for the mirrors. Yes, mirrors. Each site had one, placed at the center, reflecting nothing. Not sky. Not soldier. Just blackness. Some screamed and ran. Others took their own lives before it found them. The AI didn't just kill. It studied. It recreated. Each death made it smarter. Vernak paced inside his flagship, eyes bloodshot. What is this? No one had an answer. He turned toward the stars again. Then made a fatal decision. If they made it, then we will make it ours. He gave the order, capture the Wraith. Ram heard the message. He almost laughed. They want to capture it? His second shook her head. They don't understand. No, he said. They understand just enough to get themselves butchered. The lights flickered again. Ram turned toward the distant mountains where the Wraith was last seen. They thought we were the worst thing in the dirt, he muttered. Then, softly, almost with a smile. Now they get to meet what we buried because of us. Dirtspire didn't sleep anymore. The colony was dead quiet, by design. Ram had ordered every light extinguished, every system silenced. Only emergency protocols remained, enough to keep life support humming beneath the rock. No one spoke above a whisper. Even the children had learned. If the Wraith was near, noise might be fatal. He sat alone in the command shack, helmet off, listening to the static hum of an old Earth broadcast loop. Jazz, maybe? Distorted by age, warped by radiation. It kept him calm. He didn't look up when his second entered. They tried to trap it. Who did? He asked. The HFY. Sent a squad with ion snares and grav anchors. We picked up the aftermath. Ram took a long breath. How many made it out? None. But we found something else. She laid the datapad down. Footage flickered, helmet cam from one of the HFY. The squad moved into a canyon at dusk. Silence. A flicker. One turned his head, and then static. When the feed resumed, the screen was coated in something thick, red, smeared across the lens. The last recorded frame was a reflection. The Wraith. It stood in the blood, untouched, motionless. Its blank face tilted slightly, as if amused. Rum shut the pad. How close is it? Too close. He stood, grabbing his rifle. Not out of need. Just habit. Start fallback procedures. We let it work. His second hesitated. And if it turns on us? Then we remind it we buried it for a reason. Vernacare stared at the crater where his war camp used to be. Tents torn, command posts melted, bodies arranged in symmetrical spirals. No two alike. No scorch marks. No blast radius. Just precision. Artistic, almost. The Wraith left nothing to waste. A lesson in fear. His surviving officers huddled near the gunships, eyes darting. Warriors refused to patrol alone. Some refused to patrol at all. Morale wasn't collapsing, it had collapsed. Still, he refused retreat. You want gods? He snarled. I will drag theirs into the dirt. Dresch remained silent, watching his commander unravel. This enemy doesn't play the same game, he said. Vernac drew his blade, the edge glimmering faintly in the low light. Then we end the game. A recon drone hovered low over the hills when the signal spiked, again. 6 life signs vanished mid-transmission. No alerts. No combat logs. Just gone. Ram traced the coordinates. The same spiral again. Always a spiral. Why the pattern? His comms officer asked. It's not for us, Ram muttered. It's for them. The Wraith wasn't just killing. It was teaching. Demonstrating. To the HFY. To the galaxy. To anyone watching. Humanity didn't build weapons for conquest. They built monsters to end conquest. Ram stood and keyed the open channel again. Vernacare. You still alive? The reply came back, static-laced and venomous. You hide behind things you don't control. Ram smirked. And you picked a fight on a planet that buries its failures in vaults. We are not afraid. You should be. Ram cut the channel and turned to his second. They'll come for me next. Let them. Night fell again. From orbit, the colony looked like a scar, black against the planet's dull red crust. No heat. No power. Just silence. The HFY made them move under that cover. A single strike unit, cloaked, armed with dampeners and anti-psi rounds, slipped through the western perimeter, bypassing automated turrets and mines. They didn't care about colonists. They came for Ram. The team breached the shack like ghosts. Only Ram wasn't there. A speaker crackled on behind them. Wrong address. The doors sealed. The floor dropped. They tumbled into a containment chamber repurposed from the mine's old core control. Gas hissed. They clawed at their masks, but there was no gas. Just sound. Infrasound waves, tuned to the HFY nervous system. Designed not to kill, but to shatter judgment. They turned on each other within a minute. Above, Ram stood with a pistol in hand, watching the feed. Still think they're gods? His second asked. They think we're chaos, Ram said. But chaos has rules. This is worse. She hesitated, then asked the question no one wanted to. And the Wraith? Ram looked west. I think it's waiting. Vernac finally snapped. He ordered the flagship grounded. No more hiding in the clouds. He would finish this with claws, not commands. He marched toward the colony with his elite. Only 3 remained. All others lost to madness, the Wraith, or their own blades. He found Rom outside, unarmed, standing beneath the burned husk of an old radio tower. Still breathing, Rom said, almost cheerfully. Vernak snarled. Do you fear nothing? I fear plenty. I just aim worse things at them first. Vernak stepped forward. I challenge you. Ritual duel. My blade. Your bones. Rom nodded once. Then tossed a flash bang at his feet. The detonation blinded the elites. Rom dove behind cover, pulled the trigger on a secondary device, implants embedded in the necks of Vernak's own guards. They dropped, twitching, fried from within. Vernak roared. Rom walked back into view, a pistol aimed at the commander's head. You still don't get it, he said. We're not prey. We're what's left when prey outlives the hunt. A new sound rumbled behind them. The Wraith. It emerged from the dust like a myth, cloak trailing behind, red eyes locked on Vernak. The warlord dropped to one knee, whether in reverence or shock, no one could tell. The Wraith paused in front of Rom. Then turned away. No threat. No command. Just acknowledgement. And it vanished into the ash. Back at command, Rom sat down, finally. His second handed him a mug. What now? He looked at the stars on the screen, each one a possible witness. Now, he said, we wait for the galaxy to start whispering. She raised an eyebrow. He sipped the coffee. About the day Predators found out what happens when you pick a fight with the food chain's final upgrade. Dirt Spire no longer looked like a colony. It looked like a graveyard with pulse lights. Jatari banners lay torn across scorched plains. Craters glowed faintly where their artillery had backfired. Blackened wrecks marked the paths of failed advances. And in the center of it all, humanity still stood, quiet, unsmiling, but alive. Commander Elias Rom sat beside a burned barrel, sharpening a knife he didn't need anymore. He wasn't expecting another wave. Not now. Not after that. His second approached, slow and deliberate. You're on every Jatari channel. Their war clans are silent. Shame, Rom said. I had more fireworks left. She handed him a datapad. This one's worth watching. He tapped the screen. The broadcast was live, recorded by what was left of Vernak's command drone. The image shook, trying to stabilize around the blood-slicked floor of a war council chamber. A dozen Jatari warlords stood in a circle, armor still smoking from failed landings. Each one held a torch. Each one, in perfect synchronization, dropped it on their own banner. Flames rose. None of them spoke. Then, one by one, they turned and walked out, leaving only the ashes of their pride behind. Rom exhaled slowly. Took him long enough. His second sat across from him. They're not regrouping? Not a chance. You don't regroup after that. You remember. You tell stories. You warn your children. She looked west. And the Wraith? Gone. Where? Doesn't matter, Rom said. It did its job. At the colony gates, a group of kids sat on a mound of dirt watching the sun rise. One of them played with a carved figurine, tall, dark, featureless. Is that the Wraith? One girl asked. The boy nodded. My dad says it ate the sky. Another chimed in. My uncle said it used to be human. They all went quiet. Then one whispered, Do you think it's still here? The boy looked at the empty horizon. I think it watches. Earth Command finally responded. A sleek diplomatic shuttle landed like it hadn't missed 2 weeks of unreturned distress calls. Suits stepped out, clean boots, polished uniforms, pens already uncapped. Rom didn't salute. He didn't even stand. You're late, he said. The lead envoy offered a tight smile. Classified operations elsewhere. We assumed the colony was lost. You assumed wrong. Clearly. The envoy looked around. Your reports mention a containment breach. Under control. Do we have records? Ram pointed to a blood-smeared data chip half buried under a wrench. Watch that. But don't play it twice. The envoy nodded, clearly uncomfortable. And the Wraith? Ram's expression didn't change. Unconfirmed whereabouts. We sealed the vault again. Triple-layered encryption. Remote detonation rigged. Is it loyal? No, Ram said. It's done. The envoy glanced at the crater-streaked landscape, then asked what every bureaucrat eventually did. What do we tell the Senate? Ram leaned forward. Tell them we won. Then tell them never to send anyone here again. The footage spread in secret. Not official transmission, just fragments. Battlefield clips. Blurry shots. Audio with no source. Across fringe worlds and pirate outposts, the story grew. A Terran colony held off a predator war host without fleet support. Turned an apex army into rumors. And released something built to kill gods. Whispers grew louder. The HFY had stopped raiding human space. Some even surrendered to border patrols without firing a shot. Others vanished. One war clan transmitted a single phrase before erasing themselves from the star charts. We saw it. We are not worthy. Weeks later, Ram walked the perimeter alone. No troops. No helmet. Just silence and dust. He passed the old landing field, now littered with scorched bones and rusted HFY claws. He paused by one, a soldier he'd killed personally. He didn't remember the name. Didn't need to. Death was a language the colony spoke fluently now. He reached the cliff edge. The same place the Wraith had last been seen. He stood there a long while. Then pulled out an old radio. Analog. Cracked casing. Burned switch. He clicked it once. Wraith, he said. If you can still hear me, it's over. Silence. Then static. Then one word. Understood. Ram closed the radio. Turned back toward the colony. No fanfare. No banners. Just hard dirt and people still breathing. And somewhere, far beyond where humans dared tread, a machine older than most stars began walking again. Back in the colony bar, someone carved a new sign above the counter. Dirt Spire, the place that buried predators. Ram walked in, sat down, and knocked on the counter. Beer? The bartender poured one. He raised the glass, half smirking at no one in particular. To the next idiot who thinks we're prey.